thanks to these guys, Appalachian Vintner, for having us out. It's just like, what a rad space. You know, we've kind of been talking with them as we moved through the brewing process. They actually helped us out with some wine barrels early on because you know, they buy a lot of wine, so they had some good connections. It was a big help to us in getting the barrel program going, and so we started talking about, you know, putting something together where we bring everybody in the community who's into barrel aging beer. If you're a professional brewer or just a beer consumer who's really into barrel aged beer or a home brewer, where we kind of get together and talk about, you know, what barrel aging is and what it means to us and why it's a part of what we're doing, and because it is a very exciting kind of movement in craft beer right now is barrel aging in American style in Belgium. So we just kind of wanted to bring everybody together, and I just want to thank these guys before we do anything, because this is just awesome to be here and get a chance to share this with everybody. So first of all, I'm Walt. This is my brother Luke. We're Wicked Weed Brewing. This is, you know, we're chanting the hometown crowd here, so it's pretty easy. You guys have all probably been in our brewery, had our beer. Thank you for drinking it. If you guys don't drink it, we can't make it. So we appreciate that. Cheers to you guys. So we opened a little under a year ago. We're actually going to have an anniversary party coming up on the 28th, so you should come out.
It's December.
Yeah, sorry, December 28th. I just assume everybody knows that. Yeah. I hope you come out, it'd be cool. But when, you know, Luke and I sat down and kind of said, well, we'd like to open a brewery, what's that going to look like? And early on, we decided that barrel aging was going to be a big component of what we were going to do. And we didn't really know how that was going to happen. We just knew it was something that we were passionate about, and we would kind of figure it out as we went. So as we developed that plan of how barrel aging would work and it being part of our business plan, we had to have a lot of components come into place. You know, barrel aging is a very challenging thing for a brewery that takes a lot of resources, and you gotta have a lot of money to throw into barrels. You gotta have a lot of space to throw into barrels. I mean, barrels, you know, they're all around us here. They take up a lot of room. And unfortunately, barrel aging is one of those things to do it well, to be perceived as somebody who's doing it well, you need a lot of them, because it's a little bit less controlled version of brewing. You know, it's a lot more about kind of letting the nature of the beer and the atmosphere kind of take over and turn that product into something beautiful. And then our job at the end is kind of determine, well, this is beautiful and this is beautiful. Let's put these beautiful things together and make something great. So it's always an economy of scale thing. So it's one of those things that we started pretty small. We didn't have a lot of space for the barrels when we first started. We first started, it was just the brew pub. I was in a unique situation where I had another company off-site that I was working with before we opened Wicked Weed, and we were building a new warehouse out there, and so I just decided, well, I'm going to build a little bit bigger warehouse, and maybe we're going to work this out and shove some barrels in it at some point. So it was really great to have a chance to, well, the brewery was being built. We were kind of building this off-site barrel storage unit, which has been a huge component in letting us have a barrel program. You know, we just were lucky enough to win a gold medal at GABF, and without that facility, feel very blessed to have you know, been judged so well among such like esteemed colleagues. And the beers out there are just mind-blowingly good. So I hope everybody gets a chance to get out to GABF sometime. So we started the brewery, and if any of you guys were there on opening day, you know, we had some barrel-aged beers. We were very lucky in that we're part of this wonderful community here in Asheville of brewers who are super excited about brewing and very excited about everybody else being part of brewing. So, you know, we knew DJ and the guys over at Craggy before they closed, and we were lucky enough to kind of catch them when they had some extra room, and they let us brew 4 beers. The first batch of Dark Age, which is our bourbon aged stout, which I'm sure you guys have had, and we actually have some more for you guys to taste. That's actually what's in your glass there, which we'll talk about a little bit later. That's a sample out of the barrel. And then Black Angel, which is our black cherry sour, which again, you guys have probably seen. It's pretty. Those two are kind of staples for us in the barrel aging program. And then we did Genesis and Transgressor. Transgressor being an Imperial Red that we aged in bourbon barrels. These are all Four Roses bourbon. And then Genesis, which is a blonde sour, which we'll talk more about what sour beer is and kind of that whole space. But that was kind of the very beginning of our barrel aging program, and even that was it was a coincidence of luck. You know, we happened to have some really great friends in the brewing industry who let us use their equipment, let us use their space. basically let us do something absolutely absurd. I can't believe they let us do it still. But it was a great kickstart to our barrel aging brand and really solidified that this was going to be a part of who we were as a brewery and part of our identity. From there, we continued after we opened to go ahead and kind of chase down barrels, purchase them, put more beers like Dark Age. Our second package of Dark Age went in the barrel. We released a beer that was Hey Porter, which is a kind of Johnny Cash tribute we did, which was a porter with thyme and smoke malt thyme that was done in bourbon barrels. So some stuff like that we were still doing in the pub, but that was really it. We weren't able to do any more of these sour beers. And then we were very lucky in that we were able to acquire this white building behind us, which I'm sure you guys have seen if you've driven by the AutoQuest, which we call, it's kind of two levels. We call it the Funkatorium is the downstairs, and that's where we make all our funky beer happen. And then the upstairs, we call it Queen's Chamber, because it's just I don't know why we call it that, but why not, right? So that's where we've been able to increase capacity in our bourbon aged beers, and then the downstairs is where we've been able to do all of our sour beers, like Serenity, which again, worked out pretty well for us. We now have about 250 barrels, wine and bourbon barrels that are aging right now, on-site and off-site, and we hope to probably be somewhere in the 300 to 350 barrels by the new year. And you guys, every bit of barrel aging you see come out of us is just a drop in the bucket. I mean, you've seen maybe 50 barrels worth of barrel-aged beer come out. So we're putting a lot of energy. About 20% of the total production we're going to make this year is going into wood. Because wood aging, we age these beers from 2 months all the way up to, again, we'll have a sample later and I'm going to let you taste. It's over a year old. So that's kind of where the program's going and what we're trying to do. And we just want to take a moment to kind of bring everybody who's excited about craft beer and excited about these beers, talk a little bit more about what that looks like, because you guys don't get to see what's happening behind the scenes. You just get to kind of come and enjoy it. And it is something that's going to be growing, and there's a lot of new breweries opening who are really excited about this stuff.
As Walt was saying, the barrel aging obviously is a huge part of what we're moving towards at Wicked Weed, and a lot of breweries are moving towards in Asheville. But what we're going to break our barrel aging down into is basically two parts, and that is clean barrel aged beer and wild or sour barrel aged beer. So what we have first is clean. And clean, all that we're saying with clean, a lot of you probably already know this, but clean beer is using our friend Saccharomyces cerevisiae, which is the clean yeast. Okay, so wild yeast like Tannomyces, Bruxellensis, and all these other ones, and then the wild bacteria. Walt's going to talk about those in a little bit, but the clean barrels are like what you have in your glass right here. So this is a barrel sample. So we pulled this today straight out of a barrel. This is our dark aged stout. This is about 3 months into its aging process. We start out basically with a barrel aged beer. The key is not to rely on the barrels. The barrels are going to help you get to your end product, but it's all about the beer first. So we start out trying to create the best imperial stout that we can, and that's what this beer is right here. So this one, I believe this batch is ranking in right around 11% alcohol, so it's a big boy. But we start out with a whole range of malts to get a nice complex malt character to it. We then put it into bourbon barrels. Our last run of Dark Age was in rum barrels, which we're going to taste next, so you get to see kind of finished product. Basically, as that beer is spending time in the barrels, we're picking up what we like to refer to as micro-oxidation. White American oak are what these barrels that you're looking at right here sitting all around. That's what the majority of the barrels that we have at Wicked Weed. And white American oak is the primary oak used in barrel aging for a lot of reasons, but one of the main ones is that the pores in white American oak, a lot of trees, when they die, the pores actually open up of the tree, and that's how you see rot happen a lot. White American oak is one of few woods in the world, most of these woods being used for barrels, that the pores actually close up when it dies. So because of that, it holds water, liquid better, and it allows you to get a mostly an oxygen-safe barrier. There is a little bit of oxygen that's coming through, though. That's why we say it's micro-oxidation, not full-on just sitting outside in oxygen. So oxygen, what it's going to give us in barrel aging, is it's going to bring out notes of raisins, notes of kind of, if you think of like going down at your grandma's house or something into their basement that maybe they don't clean all that off and it's a little musty. So obviously, if you drink wine, you're probably familiar with the idea of tannins in wine, right? Tannins in wine come from the grape skin. They're going to give you that tacky sort of feel, really just a puckering dryness on the palate to finish. In barrel aging, it's going to be very much along those same lines to a lesser extent, though. The tannin that we try to avoid is like a plank tannin, which can happen when you use a barrel for too long. Plank would be like if you were to think of if you got like a toothpick and you're kind of chewing on that sort of flavor. So that's something that we're trying to avoid. The tannins that we want to have in the beer are those the drying aspect of tannins.
Do you vary the amount of time you leave in a barrel based on the alcohol content of the beer?
So he asked, do we vary the amount of time that we leave a beer in a barrel based on the alcohol percentage? And I would say no. It's kind of a yes and a no. For us right now, one of the most interesting things that we found, I think, in the first year is how much that the type of alcohol that was in the barrel previous to us getting it plays a role in how the beer reacts. Case in point is right here, what you have in your glass now, this rum barrel-aged beer. After a month and a half, we tasted it and we were just like, holy hell, what happened to this thing? Like, it was awesome, whereas the bourbon barrel stuff was taking, a long time.
It was literally one of those conversations you had with tasting. We're like, well, we should, even though this is awesome, we should just leave it because it might get more awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, it was one of those things that after a month and a half, we were thinking, okay, this is ready to be released, but we didn't want to release a beer that had only been in the barrel for a month and a half. It seems like a little bit of heresy, but it's...
So when you have a set of barrels from the same distillery, does each barrel end up being relatively the same?
Yeah, so did everybody hear that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I would say that it's one of the most interesting sides of barrel-to-barrel differences that we see in our pub. Is most of you have been to our pub, and downstairs you've probably seen it's kind of more of a face of our barrel aging program is our little stack of barrels. It's three barrels high down in our basement, and we leave our garage doors open all the time. And this summer we had the beer that you tasted, the old-fashioned beer, which was the cherries and orange zest and the whiskey barrels, and we actually saw a barrel-to-barrel difference in the height of the room. So the temperature difference, even though it may have only been a couple degrees difference between the bottom and the top of the room, as you tasted the barrels up, it was like I was seeing into the future, tasting the barrel at the top of the room. Because you could taste it and it was like, oh, this is so beautiful. It's got all these wonderful wood notes, and then you taste the one at the bottom and it was young and like, I was like, this isn't even close to the same beer. So every barrel has its own personality for sure. Some barrels, Walt's dealt with a lot of barrels down in the Funkatorium that are just a pain in the butt, where that they, maybe they're not given the character you want, or they're leaking or whatnot. So I think we see a lot of variants. Barrel.
Very good question. Like, stemming off of that, when you're talking about the variance in the barrels based on temperature and their height, you don't consider doing a Solaris system like Sherry's, where you can rotate the barrels to try to even everything out, and blend some things within other barrels, and move them up the ranks, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things you kind of adopted to help solve that problem, because what you're talking about obviously makes sense, right? If we had a systematic way of, if we have a rack 4 high and you move barrels and shuffle in circles, everybody gets the same amount of time, the right temperatures, whatever. The labor intensity of that is pretty, moving barrels, okay, so you just think about this. This is 60 gallons. Everybody knows how much water weighs. It's about 9 pounds per gallon. So that barrel weighs somewhere around 500 pounds. So when I have a rack of 8 of them, we're looking at 4,000 pounds worth of barrels, plus racks, plus 100 pounds per barrel of the wood. So you're like almost at 5,000 pounds.
Plus they're round.
Plus they're round, and a pain in my ass if you get a bunch of them in a row.
are we blending these beers for the different barrels? We are blending full batches of the regular clean beers. We'll talk about blending as we get into sours. Right now we don't have a backstock set up of the dark age. That's something that I hope to do, is kind of have a backstock. And what I mean by that is basically, we brew a batch in January, and maybe we keep 2 barrels around of that to blend with the batch that we brew in June. So you get actually even more depth of character. Yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
He's been waiting for a while. Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Hey, how do you reuse your barrels? And at what point do you lose the benefit of it? Say you have a bourbon barrel, can you use it twice before you lose that bourbon flavor or whatever?
Yeah, go ahead.
So he asked, do we reuse our barrels, and how many times do we reuse it if we do? Yes, we do reuse our barrels. We get our barrels secondhand. We don't buy any new barrels at Wicked Wheat. We want to get barrels that have character to them already. That's part of the beauty of barrel aging in craft beer, is that these other, the wineries and the distilleries have sort of taken that first hit on the barrels. They've already kind of put in the time to mature that barrel. So we get a mature barrel coming to Wicked Wheat. The first run that we get in the barrels tends to be very intense, and we always try to focus that run, if it's a bourbon barrel, on dark age, getting our dark age bourbon stout in those barrels. Second run, we'll maybe run in a different beer that we don't quite want as much character, like our Transgressor Red Ale, which will be coming out soon, which is a bourbon barrel-aged Imperial Red Ale. After the first run of dark age going through that barrel, it's picked up most of that intense bourbon character that came from the distillery. And now we throw in our Transgressor, which we dry hop after the barrel aging, and we really just want that subtle wood character to be popping through. After that run, we tend to, on the third run of the barrels, send it over to our sour beer side.
Just remember, please don't drink this beer in a glass.
Oh yeah,
So we're talking about pouring, but
Nice.
how about this? You talk about the old fashioned real quick.
And then
Everybody,
we're
moving on to sour beers now, so we're gonna move to just like a polar opposite direction of the beers we've been tasting. So make sure you get a really good rinse. Let's get this glass or the beer in your glass, and then we'll kind of start talking you through Brett beers into sour beers.
Okay, cool. So I'm gonna just really quick. Did everybody try the old fashioned, the beer that was on tap? Everybody? Yeah. Good. Very cool. So you are the first people to taste it, which is pretty cool. So that beer, it will be on tap this weekend at the pub, but that was a really cool conceptual beer. How many of you have had our Cool Cumber? Anybody had that one? Yeah. Cool Cumber? Okay, so Cool Cumber was our first cocktail-inspired beer. It was a beer that I brewed actually at home when I was living in Delaware. My wife Abby and I, Abby's running around here somewhere, we love gin as well as beer. Hendrick's gin in particular. Hendrick's gin is a cucumber gin, and we would make these basil Hendrick's coolers in the summer. And I was drinking one of those, and I thought, man, this would be awesome to make into a beer. So I tried to replicate the Hendrick's basil cooler. Hendrick's is that cucumber gin, so it's cucumber, basil, juniper berries. This beer that you guys just drank, it's mimicked after an old-fashioned. Walt came back from a trip at the lake with his wife Wes, and they were drinking some amazing old fashions in Tennessee, right? And he came back, New York. He was up in New York, and he had these awesome old fashions, and came back and said, we got to make a beer to try to mimic an old fashioned. So we started getting our heads together to see, all right, how can we do this? We got a hold of Troy & Sons, and actually got some really fresh barrels from Troy & Sons. So we ran a old ale, pretty much about 9%, what did it come out at? 9.8% beer into those Troy & Sons barrels, added in about 150 pounds of tart cherries, and then we added orange zest as well. So all of the components of a old-fashioned, aged it for about 5 months in the barrels, tasted it along the way, and we really wanted to have a really fresh bourbon character to that beer. So as soon as it really started getting to where that bourbon was really popping out, that's when we put it into the glass right now. So I think it's in an awesome spot, and it's hopefully something you guys are going to see more at Wicked Week, because I think it came out really cool. So I'd love to hear your feedback
Absolutely.
when we're just hanging out afterwards, if you want to. So with that, we're going to head on to sour beer. Walt's going to lead the discussion
Cool.
here.